On May 20th, 2024, the new president of Taiwan, Lai Ching-te, and his vice president, Hsiao Bi-khim, were inaugurated in Taipei. On the same day, China announced the production of a movie themed around Penghu. The movie tells the story of how Shi Lang led the Fujian Navy to unify Taiwan in the late 17th century during the Kangxi Emperor's reign. The poster's display of the phrase, "Unify Taiwan," conveys a strong sense of warning.
如果说我们要上战场了，我觉得我们也是义无反顾的，就是过去了。
Among the many offshore islands of Taiwan, Penghu is considered the legal frontline in the standoff between China and the United States. It's noteworthy that even the first cup of coffee served on Penghu can be attributed to the presence of the US military. Since the 1950s, these islands have been on the front lines facing communist China.
Leaving out Quemoy and Matsu, draw a line in effect, abandoning these islands to the communists.
Over the decades, the history of war has shaped these islanders' unique ways of life. They are the frontline residents. This is Huang Chun, the owner of Penghu's first coffee shop, Paris Garden. Paris Garden is located near Penghu's Magong Harbor, which is the largest military port of any Taiwan's offshore islands. The presence of military personnel deeply influenced the fate of the shop.
一开始是因为迄阵天候就封闭嘛，拢无什么消费者，假日甲礼拜日街上有遮多迄种阿兵哥，遮多阿兵哥的时阵，我先生就讲不然要做一什么生意，会通过这人客就咱内底做安尼，所以咱免去开这巴黎的这个店。
Paris Garden originally started as a shop selling fruit juice and beverages. When the American Military Advisory Group came to Penghu in the 1950s, they couldn't find a single cafe on the island, so they asked Paris Garden to learn how to brew coffee.
卖咖啡是因为迄阵发生823炮战，迄阵都刚好就美军顾问团驻进平湖，因为这个军舰要保护防卫，怎啊讲平湖这个所在，内底招待人就出来巴黎人啉果酱，其实他们不喜欢啉果酱，后来这个顾问团内底人有一个是可以翻译，就透过他安尼沟通了讲，无恁咱拢卖咖啡贩卖。我那时真的回答是讲，唔知什么叫做咖啡嘛。后来他就说，帮我们筹备这些器材跟咖啡粒，所以我们才知影触碰到咖啡这一块。
Penghu is far from Taiwan's economic center. However, after the war, trendy coffee shops quickly emerged. Coffee came to Penghu because of the American Military Advisory Group. But why did the US military come to Penghu? Following the Korean War in 1950, the Cold War's hot conflicts began. The United States was determined to engage in Asia to prevent communist forces from crossing the Pacific and threatening US survival. Under this strategy, the United States signed a defense treaty with the Republic of China government in Taiwan. Located at the center of the first island chain in 1954. At that time, Penghu was the actual legal front line of the Sino-American conflict. In Penghu, there are hidden histories of competition and conflict between world powers. Xu Xueji is the world's first historian to obtain a doctoral degree specializing in Taiwanese history studies. In the past, Taiwan's history was only considered a part of Chinese history, and there were limited research materials available. She is also from Penghu, which is why she places a special focus on researching Penghu's history.
我们瓦同至少有100个博士以上产出了哈，所以那叫做博士村了哈。那就是穷嘛，没钱啊，大家都拼命读书，就这样子。
Xu Xueji and her peers not only established Taiwanese history as an independent academic discipline, reclaiming Taiwan's subjectivity, but they also provided us with a fresh perspective to examine the centuries-old history of the Taiwan Strait since the age of exploration.
南宋孝宗乾道7年的时候，就开始派人到澎湖去防守，所以这个时候它是一个福建很重要的一个海防的要地，跟台湾其实还谈不上关系。
In 1604, the Dutch briefly occupied Penghu, intending to establish it as a maritime base for trade with China, similar to how Portugal occupied Macau. However, the Ming dynasty wanted the Dutch to leave Penghu and use Taiwan as their base instead, because Penghu was more strategically important for China than Taiwan was at the time. However, later on, after suffering a loss during the Ming-Qing transition, the southern Ming general Ko Xingya used Taiwan and Penghu as bases to resist the Qing dynasty forces. Since then, Taiwan and Penghu have become military islands, occupying crucial strategic positions along China's southern coast.
过去的澎湖是跟中国大陆关系比较密切，可是到郑成功把台湾跟澎湖变成他进攻中国大陆最重要的后方的基地的时候，那个时候台澎才一体，台湾就变成需要澎湖在前面当他的前卫，澎湖就变成跟台湾唇齿相依。再来，所有的粮食不再是从福建过来了。那清朝派施琅把澎湖打下来之后，台湾跟澎湖就变成福建省的一部分。日本统治的时候，那澎湖的位置就更重要了。
Japan used Taiwan and Penghu as launch points for its southward expansion into Southeast Asia, eventually leading to conflicts with the United States. In 1941, they attacked Pearl Harbor, thrusting the United States into World War II.
但是1949年以后就牵涉到整个这个中央政府要撤退到台湾，那澎湖就变成支援金门最重要的基地了。就是美军顾问团就会进驻嘛，然后在这边也设了海军组，设了这个空军组嘛，后来即使到现在，澎湖现在都是最重要的支援金门的地方。
Since the 17th century, soldiers from each generation have come to this crucial military island to serve and then depart. There were Dutch, French, Japanese, Americans, and of course, a large number of soldiers from China. At the beginning of the 21st century, Shi Mingmiao from Taiwan followed in the footsteps of her predecessors and became one of the soldiers stationed in Penghu. Yes, she is a woman. When she arrived in Penghu, she was one of over 20,000 female volunteer soldiers in Taiwan.
我原先的话是在澎湖防卫指挥部混炮营炮一连担任上等兵，然后我现在已经退伍了。
Since joining the military, Shi Mingmiao has frequently been deployed to the front lines. She was once stationed in Kingman and later transferred to Penghu as an artillery soldier, experiencing her first live fire training and learning how to aim and hit targets amid loud noises exceeding 100 decibels.
因为火炮在发射的时候，它会有后坐力，那它整个后坐力上来的时候，是我没有办法去适应它。我当下我整个是有点皱，我就觉得，哦，原来我真的有可能上到战场去。
Even though she has retired from the military, Shi Mingmiao likes to visit the small shop, Grassroots and Fruit. It was her favorite place to unwind during her service, providing her with a much-needed escape from the pressure of military training.
嗨，喵喵，今天内用吗？要喝茶还是要吃面？
喝茶。
喝茶。好，那就茶。
The owner of the shop, Huang Shi'en, not only sells herbal tea, snacks, and beer, but also offers psychic readings and a warm community atmosphere, making grassroots and fruit a popular place among young people. Like other Taiwanese men, Huang Sheng has also served in the military. He served in the Navy for 1 year.
我们的话，在台湾这边的话，你只要18岁，年满18岁，你就要准备要服兵役。那比如说我们在离岛嘛，我们是离岛居民，然后或者你就要住在比较偏远的一些地方，他会优先把你安排回到你的家乡的地方服役。
By the end of the 20th century, many economically developed democratic countries had already abolished compulsory military service. However, in East Asia, Taiwan, and South Korea, despite being developed countries with regular democratic elections, still require all adult males to serve in the military due to their proximity to China and North Korea.
以前大家都是很自由的感觉，那你从一个很自由到一个很不自由的地方，那会有很大的不适应。
Serving in the military means losing freedom. Besides having to adhere to absolute obedience inside the military camp, individuals are also barred from freely traveling overseas.
因为我还没有换过护照，所以我的护照上呢是会被加注，就是持照人应经核准才可以出国的这种章。对，所以我们出国前都要很早之前就要去申请，然后你只能跟团，你不能自由行，然后不能去共产国家，那超过你搞不好就会被通缉。
Although Xu Xieji is a woman and has never served in the military, during her youth, many female students voluntarily joined combat camps to experience quasi-military life at the front lines, undergoing military training and experiencing the austerity of military life.
那个时候因为还是蛮紧张的，所以他们怕这些人有闪失也是很不好玩的，所以他们就开始有军舰跟踪，就是远远的，他就只给我们看，就在旁边跟我们一起航行。那时候军队在保护我们，然后我们从金门要回来也是送到澎湖，然后就结束了。
During the Cold War, the United States placed significant importance on the Taiwan Strait. In the globally televised presidential debate in 1960, Kennedy and Nixon clashed over whether the US should defend the islands of Kingman and Matsu, which are very close to China. However, even Kennedy, who supported abandoning Kingman and Matsu, stated that if the communist forces attacked Penghu, the US military would intervene to assist.
Go back to 1955. The resolution commits the president of the United States, which I supported, to defend Formosa, the Pescadores, and if it was his military judgment, these islands.
其实我们的生意大部分还是靠军人为主。后来因为是我们退出联合国以后，军队移驻到台湾，像那阵时阵，我嘛就感觉讲，忽然间没有军人下位，我嘛很恐慌啊，真的，每天眼睛睁开，怎么都没有客人，会觉得很惶恐啊。
In 1979, as Taiwan withdrew from the United Nations, the US military also pulled out of the Taiwan Strait, choosing to cooperate with China out of a belief that mutual exchanges and economic development would bring about democracy. However, today, nearly 40 years later, the dynamics of US-China relations have undergone significant shifts. In recent years, the United States have passed many pro-Taiwan bills and arms sales agreements, expressing support for Taiwan, which has greatly displeased the PRC. This has contributed to heightened tensions in the Taiwan Strait.
有客人就问我说：“哎，曹老板，如果那个哪一天打起来了，那你会怎么办？那如果说我们要上战场了，我觉得我们也是义无反顾的，就是过去了。因为如果说今天我们连这个国家都守不住了，我觉得你很难有自己的生活吧。我觉得这个意识是大家都要共同有的，因为比台湾小的国家还是有很多的。对，不要以为台湾很小就觉得好像比别人弱。
只是军人出来，你该上场的时候，你该真的要去面临打仗这件事情的时候，你还是得要上去，你不可能去逃避这件事。我觉得啊，即使退再久，不管男生或女生也好，一定都还是有一个忠君爱国的那颗心存在。
Faced with the prospect of war, many people from Penghu display resolute determination, perhaps because dealing with war or cooperating with military tasks have been a part of life on Penghu since ancient times.
我想做一个澎湖人可以帮澎湖修治啊，这不仅只是表现我自己的这个学术能力，另外也是我莫大的光荣哦，所以我愿意接下修治的这样的工作。
Xu Xueji rallied outstanding scholars to revise the military chronicles of Penghu, filling a significant gap in Penghu's history and also contributing to the broader landscape of world maritime military history. Since the age of exploration, the military attire of the people of Penghu has remained an integral part of their identity. In Penghu, people have long accepted the fate of living on the front lines, which means living in close quarters with the military. However, at the same time, many residents and businesses choose to take care of the soldiers, understanding their hardships. They provide warmth and support outside the military camps, whether through a delicious dinner, a cup of coffee, or a free psychic reading. Even with the threat of war looming, people strive to live well while remaining vigilant. This is the way of life for these frontline residents.